Here it is, live action camera. All of our friends logged in at home on your computers, maybe even at a coffee shop. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. We just want to stare right into the camera as if we're looking straight at you and just say thank you. Thank you for logging in. My name is Ryan Peterson, and you are right now watching live and LeadStep Online. To my left, your right, is none other than Thomas the Taguchi.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're excited that we're going to bring some good quality stuff for everyone to begin improving as leaders. So, first off, go ahead and start logging in. If your screen's full size, go ahead and minimize it. It's on the right side. Log in. It's going to be a really interactive night, and they're not going to want to miss out. So, get a chance to jump on in there.
Yeah. So when you do that, minimize in there, there is going to be a screen on your right. So log in, ask some questions. There's going to be a little bit less physical content that we're going to be covering over tonight so that we have time and leave room for you to interact. I don't know if you remember, but I actually teased this particular topic. I've been looking forward to it for a few months now, but I teased this topic last month, so we're talking about it here today. So pretty excited about it. And so as we dive in, I want to start by just asking this question. So Thomas, I don't know about you, but every once in a while, honestly ask myself the question, why do people follow me? I mean, there's a twofold reason. There's a curiosity that comes from it, but there's also a little bit of insecurity. Just because, there's a wondering. I'm honestly looking on the other side of the table, wondering, looking at you, Thomas, I really don't know why you follow me sometimes. And now I honestly think, have to wrestle with this. But that's really the premise of tonight. Why do people follow you? Now, if you're logging in right now and you're a Christian, then you know one of the things that we're talking about almost every single time we open up during our lead step. If you're a Christian, then the other side of that coin is that you're a leader. God has called you as a Christian to bring heaven to earth. That's a leader. God has called you as a Christian to change your place of influence better than the way it started. That's leading. He's called you to victorious living, to go the second mile. That's being a leader. And so if you're a Christian, you're a leader. Now, if you're not and you're watching us here and you're logging in, fantastic. We love that you're here, but we make no vague obscurity about where we actually get our content. I mean, it's biblical. Jesus was the greatest teacher and greatest leader of all time. He's not only our Savior and our Lord, but he's everything to us. And at the same time, we can hone in on some of the practical things that He's called us to do: steward our family, take care of our businesses, look over the city and prosper it. One of the greatest things that we as a church are going to be doing is actually looking into our city and seeing how that we can benefit them. Is to say we want our city to prosper so that our city prospers those who live in it. And that's the idea, that we are supposed to be looking at our businesses, the commerce, the medical arena, the entertainment, and all wondering, how can we be better leaders at every single level? So that's what we talked about the last couple months. We took November and December and really dug into the levels of leadership that we talk about here inside at Grace. And so hopefully that's going to help you, and you can log on and find out some of the other ones as well. If you missed some of the previous ones, they're all recorded and ready for you to check out. But that's the premise, the framework, if you will, tonight. It's this question, why, and I hope you've asked this before, but why do people follow you? Because really, if you've talked about the levels of leadership, that we talked about last month, if you ask why people follow you and you're really not moving up the ranks, you're not progressing along, then your leadership is limited, and it's limited to a title. So honestly, if you're a boss, people are only following you for positional reasons. They're only following you because, Thomas, I'm just going to say it, because they have to. They're getting paid to get followed, right? They're your boss. So you have to do what they say.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ryan. And that's one of my hopes too for this leadership development, is the fact that many people see themselves as managers, and they feel like they're overseeing and they're leading. But really, if you're just managing people, you're not really exercising leadership. A lot of times it's exactly that. Hey, you're paying my bills, so I'm going to go ahead and do what you say. But there is so much more opportunity, and I'm really hoping that you're going to get a chance to improve and to begin to ask these questions. Because if you haven't asked why people are following you, then this is going to be the perfect night to start getting that journal out or getting out some paper
Yeah.
and writing down and start answering some hard questions.
Yeah. And hard questions is exactly what it's going to require. Do some investing into your own time. I mean, you can look at any single leadership podcast, article, leadership network, organization, business. Good to Great is a fantastic example. And you look at people, leaders in their place, and they actually take time so that they are developed in their competency and also in their character. And so the tough questions, honestly, you're going to have to ask yourself, what do I need to improve on? What do I need to get better at? What do I need to do to take our leadership, our organization, managing students, education, wherever your field is that God's called you, where are you moving so that you can advance that? Because your level of leadership is honestly never going to move up until you actually move to say, I need to take a step up and progress so that the people following me can do the same thing. And they're waiting on you. And so this is what's interesting about this Gallup poll. The Gallup poll had 10,000 people. Catch this. They did a survey, and they took 10,000 people, and they said, okay, here's the thing. We want to know why people are following you. And I love this study because it took them 3 years to do it, 2005 to 2008, I think it was, 10,000. And they took the top 4 characteristics, and really here's what they found is it was crazy study that they did, because through there a lot of people will take the leader. Let's say I'm sitting across the room from a high caliber leader like Thomas the Taguchi. That's actually his middle name, and you have this format of tell me what it's like, tell me what it takes to be a leader. You ask the leader questions, or you take a leadership organization or a business that's really, really doing well, and then you go to them and you say, hey, why are you guys doing this well? How is this actually progressing? And you talk to the leadership organization or the leader as an individual. But what they did is they actually said, let's not focus on the leader, let's go ask the people. Let's go ask the ones that are actually following, taking a step and following those other leaders. Then they surveyed those. So it was a totally different type of study that they did, which was highly interesting, because the cool part about this is the different type of study wasn't focusing on the leader, it was focusing on the followers and asking the question, why do you follow your leader? And it was a two, yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
I think it's amazing. If anyone's ever done research before or even a glimpse of it, it is so difficult. Through a 3-year study with 10,000 participants, this is some phenomenal data.
Yeah.
And the fact that 4 qualities emerged amongst, I can just imagine, a vast amount of fill-in-the-blank answers.
True that.
Goodness, it's
And
good.
speaking of the answers, they were not given a multiple choice. The individuals that were taking this were not actually interacting with one another. So I couldn't ask Thomas, that's, what did you put for your top 2? Oh, that's a really good suggestion. I'm going to put that. There was no interacting between the surveyors and the people. So that yet again, with our language, our English language being so complicated, it's just crazy cool how to see this. Okay, so with that being said, I want to get down to the idea that we see here asking the questions. Here's what they did. They asked 2 types of questions. Here's the first one. What leader has the most positive influence in your daily life? So they asked this question to the people, 10,000 people that they surveyed, and they asked this as the first question. So then they said, okay, what leader has the most? Yeah, no, I can answer that. Thomas, do you think can you answer that as who has?
Ryan Peterson.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Not let's. Thank you, I appreciate that. But what one person? Can we think about that? I think we can have one person that we don't know that has affected us at some point in time. I had a great 3rd grade teacher. I don't know about you. It was Mrs. Bass. I mean, she was awesome, bro. Anyway, back to it. It's daily positive encouragement. And this is exactly what they asked. So they said, okay, think about that person. Now, when you're thinking about that person that actually helps you daily, then they said this, list 3 words that best describes what this person contributes. This is what they said, 3 words that best describes what that person contributes to your life. 3 descriptive words, not sentences, don't elaborate, not paragraphs, not stories, just 3 words. They narrowed it down. And 4 words out of 10,000, Thomas, you just said this, came up to the top. 4 words that are going to answer it. And so here it is. What are the 4 characteristics your followers are looking to you as a leader to have and to hold from this day forth? All
right, it's not a wedding. It's not a
okay, it's not a
wedding.
wedding. All right, with all that suspense like hanging over the cliff, we're going to go to a commercial break. No, I'm kidding. We don't even have commercials. All right, you guys, are you ready? Are you
Come
ready
on.
to get into these
That's
4?
good.
Have we suspended it long enough? It's been 10 minutes and
I'm
26
sure
seconds.
they're dying to
Okay,
hear it.
they're
Let's
ready.
go.
They're ready. 4 of them. 4. Gallup poll, 10,000 people. The first one, round of applause, is trust. You would think it's like vision or something. Like, anyway.
Like we said earlier, it's not money, right? It's not finances or provision. It turned out to be trust.
Trust. It's big. It's big. All across. This is not, this is it. This is one thing to note. We are coming from a church and we are church leaders, but this is not Christian based. This is not a biased poll. It's not a certain demographic. It's not one particular people group. So I mean, you just got to spread the spam over. And they said trust. Now these are in no particular order. They're just top 4. Trust is one. Compassion is the next one.
This goes back to who I talked about last LeadStep Online. I had that awesome first sergeant back in college, and one of the big things that really turned our whole, not just myself, but our whole company around to follow him wholeheartedly was because he actually cared about us. He had compassion.
It's good.
And yes, he was hard when you need to be hard. Believe me, I understand. When you're a leader, you got to make hard calls sometimes. Sometimes you got to say things that people don't want to hear. But at the end of the day, they know that you actually care about them. They can trust that you care about them. It goes way further than a simple paycheck or simple promise of a future can go to.
Come on, that's so good. So, third is stability. Stability. That's good. We're gonna talk a little bit about these, all 4 of them. So let me just give you the 4th one, and then we'll dive right in. Hope. 4 of them. There they are. You got it. Trust, compassion, stability,
and hope.
That's right. So let's talk about just really, really quickly, because I want to preface right now. We may get through early with our content because really what I wanted to do is ask this question. Now that you know the 4, I'm going to ask the question right now so that you guys can get ready for it. How have you seen these 4 interact with you? How have you held these to a high regard? How have you seen in an organization maybe these broken? What examples can you give, stories that come to mind, principles that really support that these 4 are pretty big? They may not be exhaustive. This isn't everything that people are looking for, but by and large, like these are pretty big. And might I add, these are 4 of big ones that Jesus literally walked through this earth and portrayed us to follow him as a leader, as a teacher, as a God who wasn't just human, but he set the stage as an example to say, this can be possible. You can have hope. You can have stability. You can have this particular idea of love, being cared for by someone. So anyway, when you look at these, I just stir it up. Ask some questions right now where you are, and go ahead and just start submitting them. Thomas is going to grab his laptop after we go through these 4, and we're going to interact with you right where you are. And we really want to find out, how have you seen these at work? How have you seen great examples of these? How have you seen not great examples? And how this have helped you personally or even in an organization. So without that further ado, let's dive right in. Trust, top 1, trust. Trust, I just want to go on note to say trust is earned by the one giving it, because trust can never be something forced to receive. And I think that's obvious, but I just want to state the obvious right off the bat, because as a leader, even as a parent, as a student, whatever it is that your title is, one of the things that we all are looking for is trust with one another. We want to know that you're for one another, but at the same time, you can't just give it out to say, hey, as a leader, you got to trust me. You just have to trust me. Now, one of the things is that they actually saw in this particular study is whenever trust was broken in an organization, it was always talked about. But whenever an organization or a team was really, really healthy, trust was never a word that was even spoken of. It was just felt. I just kind of want to hang out with that truth just for a second. I don't know if you want to repeat that, but trust was spoken of only when it was broken. And I don't know if you've ever had an organization like this or been in a relationship where you've actually had to talk about trust being broken. And you're thinking, I just don't know if Thomas is really going to be there for me, if he's really going to, if he's going to pull through, if I can give him some of this stuff, honestly, because I don't know if I can trust him. I mean, this has been conversations that we all had before at some point in time. So trust needs to be built only by the giver, not by the one that actually gives. Here also another one, and then we're going to switch topics. When it comes to trust in an organization, check this out. The efficiency of a working team actually becomes better. They get their job done, they get their work done faster, and they're more efficient when they're in an environment where their leader is trustworthy. That is huge.
It is huge, and it's a good theme if you actually look with stability and trust. There's something massive there. People want to know that they can rely upon you. That's a big word, is they can rely upon you.
Yeah.
If you're a day-to-day leader who's constantly changing and shifting, that's hard to trust that you're going to be the same person when you show up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's not what people want to follow. So I completely 100% agree with the trust. And personally, that's the reason why I've loved coming to Grace is the person you see on stage, he's actually the same way when you meet him on a regular day-to-day conversation. You can trust that's the actual person who he is.
It's good.
When I look at our leadership here. So when people look at your leadership, I hope that you think and you can say for a fact that they can trust that I'm going to be consistent in my life. I'm going to be stable.
Mm-hmm.
And because if not, that's something to address in your leadership. And we're hoping, I know this is our hard conversations, but we're hoping this is going to stir you up and bring you on to that next level that God's calling you to, that next plateau. So I'm encouraging guys, start asking those hard questions. Do my followers, do they trust me?
Yeah.
Do they see me as stable?
Yeah. And if so, that hard question, that's duly noted because there's levels of it too. Do they trust me at a certain level? But can it go deeper?
Good.
I mean, yes, maybe the quick answer can be, yeah, I think they trust me, but can they trust me more? Can they trust me at a deeper level? Can I take them further in an organization, not out of obligation, but because they trust you? And that's a question that we just need to ask. And it comes from the ones giving it to you, because remember, it's never forced. It comes by hard things that come over time, like character and integrity. And like Thomas is talking about, the private and the public life being consistent, like lining up. Jesus was a great example of that. But when we have to do that, we have to say, hey, we have to project some honesty as leaders, but have the character and integrity here hosted in us so that there can be trust among us, so that what we're saying can actually have words and weight to it. That's how I was talking about the efficiency. If you have a leader that comes in talking a loud game but never moves and never does anything, it's going to be like, well, I don't know, he said that last week, but he's really not following up. There's no accountability. Our work doesn't really get checked up on. Excellence isn't a standard. You can see how trust is really going to be broken quickly in a company or in a team which is just absent. Then they're starting to talk about that.
That's bringing up a good point. Another good question for you all. Has anyone of you have ever been micromanaged by a leader or by a manager?
Never, not
micromanaged
one time, Thomas.
Good for you, Ryan. Well, I can tell you the military side, it's a huge part of it. And that's one thing that same first sergeant told us was, hey, you got to trust people because that's going to help them actually start to walk out because that micromanaging thing actually limits so much of people's potential. But you got to still handle it right because like you said, if you're free reins, never check in, it's almost like how much do they matter? How important is their job role?
Yeah.
But if you trust but verify, that's what he would say. Trust but verify.
Yeah.
So when you have someone say, hey, I'm trusting you to get this job done. I know it. I worked at Sly Fox on the weekend. Ian had to go out. The boss had to go out for the night. And he said, hey, I'm trusting that you can make sure everything gets set up tonight. And yeah, you're going to check in and make sure it happens too. But it's nice to know that, say, I believe you're capable of taking care of these basic things. Just go ahead and get them done. But when you check up on them, it helps establish that relationship. You're valuable. I trust you to get a job done. But what you're doing is so important still. I'm going to be a part of it as well.
That's good. Also leaves a lot of room for encouragement when you follow up with that accountability. You can say, hey, man, you did a great job with what I asked you to do. All right, next one, compassion. Thomas just hit on this, but compassion is that idea that it's love in action. Love needs to be present in your organization. Now, I know what you're thinking. We're in the retail business. There is no love. We're in the education. There is no love. You're in the service arena. In the military, in the medical arena. We live in a resort town. You could be in the tennis or the golf industry, and you are in the service industry. I get it. You're thinking there's no love there. We do what we're supposed to do. But at the same time, What if you change that atmosphere? Yes, you're in the service industry and we appreciate you doing that. But at the same time, what if you brought love in the context of compassion, actually walked out? Meaning you cared for people over your job of what you did. You cared for people over the products that you sold. You cared for people over the policies that were actually supposed to support them. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't do any of that stuff and you just milk the clock by talking to a lot of people and you're an extrovert and you just loved. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about loving who people are beyond what they can do for you. You may have patients in the medical arena and you just realize, hey, that all I have to do is go and take care of them. But maybe thinking outside the box and figuring out variables about who they are and where they come from and what they've been struggling with will help them actually meet a need, a emotional need. Then you can attain to getting some honesty out of them about maybe real symptoms that are going on. And then you can address the source and not just scaling over the top of this. There's so many examples, but really one of the things that compassion, love in action breeds is authenticity. It's like authenticity begets authenticity. You get a little bit of it and it opens it up for somebody else. And love has a security because there's no fear in unconditional, true, purified love. I mean, when you have that starting to work over in you, then you're going to start to see that in the midst of one another. And it's going to be a beautiful thing. People around you are going to be thinking, hey, you know what? I actually want to do a better job. I want to go the second mile. I want to do, maybe put some overtime in and put another project in for my boss because honestly, he loves me, he appreciates me, or she, whatever the case may be. And it allows some really guardrails, healthy guardrails. But check this out. When compassion or love is absent, what's going to happen is your people and your teams, the unhealthy side is going to be insecurity, and it's going to be misplaced, and they're going to think that they don't belong. And so then they're going to be searching around, they're going to be gossiping a lot, they're going to be talking amongst themselves, maybe even looking for another job, looking for another position. They're going to be hoping that the time, if they work till 5, they're going to be hoping that 5 o'clock comes soon so they can get out of there. But whenever someone feels cared for and loved on, great, crazy, amazing things can happen. On to the third one, because I want to give you guys a chance to chat about this. Stability. Now, I don't have to tell you that we live in a shaky, unstable society. Now, we're changing that every single day when we bring stability. But I got to be honest, people are looking for an anchor out there. They're looking for looking for something, a business that is just stable, but they're going somewhere. I didn't say boring. I didn't say they're maintaining. I didn't say they're just keeping the status quo, but they're stable. They're foundational. They're not gonna be hasty with their decisions. The leader is stable enough where what happens is let me make a difference. There's trust in the individual leader, but there's stability in the organization. And that's a big difference because, can I say this? You can't have stability in the organization if your leadership isn't trustworthy. Because that's what actually births the foundation and the walls to your business is how you guys handle ethics and morals and decision-making and guardrails about what you do and what you won't allow inside of your place of influence. And so when we look at this, we have to know stability is a big one. Your followers, the people that are following you, even getting a paycheck, the ones that consider you their boss, you are their provider. They're looking for you not to make hasty decisions. I mean, I can check out online and go check out the news and then all of a sudden get freaked out because of the stocks or freaked out because of the news that's going on. And then all of a sudden I'm going to go into my work and I'm going to say, listen, Thomas, I don't know about you, but you got to check out the news because we have to do something in our business. We're going to sell everything. We're going to move your position. And you just have these hasty, rash decisions. People are like, this is an unstable environment, honestly, because my boss can't make up their mind. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change, you can't shift, you can't change some things up in your organization. Absolutely, everyone needs change. But when it comes to people having this unsettling feeling, that's unhealthy. So stability is needed so that you can actually have this particular idea. And one, yeah, go ahead. I know you want to.
And that's really good, Ryan. That's very good because you can actually ask some honest, practical questions about your organization. If you have a place and you feel like there's constant turnover, you're constantly having to hire new people, you're constantly losing people, that's a sign to anyone who's been there long enough that's not really a stable in organization. But there's also a balance there. that's just a hard thing to do, is to balance
Yeah.
it, because you do want to be changing. We're a globalized world. If you're not improving, like you mentioned, Good to Great by Jim Collins, a phenomenal leadership book, because the best leaders are always improving. The average CEO, I think, reads a book a week. They're constantly making changes in their own life and their organization. But that differs to the bad realm if you're constantly having turnover of people
Yeah,
and
yeah.
positions, and it doesn't look good on an organization.
That's good. So I want to give you a quick example that you have probably been involved in before. I want to just set up the scenarios. Let's just say that Thomas, you are the leader. You are our CEO of a really big company.
Nervous already.
Oh, nervous. Yeah. No, you're doing great. You're doing great. And so you have led this organization so much so that I want to just gain in some personal attachment. You probably here as a leader, and you've been in this situation before. Once you elevate in your leadership, you're not all aware of the pulse of what's going down on the bottom floor. Okay, companies, employees. HR, customer service, product development, all that good stuff. You probably, as a CEO, Thomas, you probably are not aware of all of it. You're looking at the bigger picture, where the company's going, et cetera, but you don't necessarily have a pulse. Now, I do. Okay, so I work down there. I'm like a middle level manager for your company. And so here's a situation that usually happens inside of the company. No matter this is scalable, so no matter the size, I come back and I say, listen, there's a little bit of a hiccup. There's an issue. There's problems with the products. There's problem with the people. They're talking about certain things, and I continue to bring the problem that all of our staff, there's 10 or 15 or hundreds of them, and they're kind of like they're talking about this thing. It's an issue. A lot of people will say it's an elephant in the room. And so as an organization, you're the CEO. I don't have any power to do it, but what I do have is the ability to come to you and just put it on your table and say, you need to become aware of this. Hundreds of your employees are talking about this. I'm talking about this, but there's no situation that's going to change until it's on your plate. Now, once you become aware of this, here's what people are looking for you, is they're looking for stability so that you can stabilize the ship that's actually in turbulent water. And what they want you to do is deal with the elephant in the room. Now, this is where good leaders become great leaders, because they deal with confrontation right from the get-go. They deal with unhealthy sources. They deal with the elephant in the room. They say, we're not going to go another day, another week, another pay period where this thing is in the room. Let's deal with it. And what it does to every single one of your employees is it says, that's a person that I want to follow, because they allow stability in the relationship and also in the organization, because he's dealing with problems, not just letting them go, hoping that they get better. Because a lot of people don't like confrontation. They just don't like it. But if you're a high-level leader, at some point in regards, you're going to have face value. You're going to have a whole bunch of conflicts that you're just going to have to deal with. You either mull over them, hoping they just like a water under the bridge, or you deal with them, and all of a sudden your employees rise up and they support you. This is what's right. We're going to stand for values in the company again. Stability's there, and they're looking to you as the CEO who needs to lead the organization strong.
That's so good. Because honestly, if your leader's unstable, if they're worried about something, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be worried about it. Because if I'm seeing him stress out, it's going to stress me out, right? Just by a relationship.
Yeah.
There's actually a good practical story. GCD had that happen to them. They had to go through that huge, by the way, one of the best masters of Christian leadership, but they were going through their accreditation process, and it was so difficult that employees were like, there's no way we're going to get this done. Even people at the accreditation side were like, this is almost looks impossible. But Dr. Crowther, their president, continually just said very, very stable, was like, we're going to get it done. We're going to break into bite-sized pieces. We're going to get it done. And despite all odds, and even to the surprise of the accreditors, they got finished through with everything. So there's something about when people look to you, and if you're not stressed about it, to some degree, then they're not going to be stressed about it either.
Yeah, that's awesome. Which brings us to the next one, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So I hope that you have had some examples in your own life, or good, bad examples, that we're not trying to air people's dirty laundry out to dry, and we're not trying to burn anybody. But I want to in a healthy environment, talk about some of these situations so that we can start a dialogue to say, hey, how can we become better leaders, considering our people, our followers are looking for these 4 big things, these 4 characteristics to help. So the last one is hope. Hope actually brings us to the future. And I love it because, your employees, the ones that are following you, either voluntarily or just because they believe in you, or because you care for them, or there's stability and there's trust in the leader, they're following you because they not only see that you're bringing stability today, but you're also bringing a beautiful portrait for tomorrow. And hope is one of those things that I actually looked up, really just kind of like the definition. The biblical definition is hope is eagerly expecting good and confidently awaiting for something joyful. And I love that idea. It's eagerly expecting something good. Now, here's a beautiful part that Jesus cries out. He says, every situation is going to turn into good. I promise you that. If you call yourself a Christian and you follow me, every situation that you find you're in, internally, externally, is going to turn to good. That's a promise in Romans 8. But at the same time, let's just take that into the arena of leadership development and say, what would that look like if we took that principle and we said, hey, no matter what the situation is, we're going to find something to turn this ugly, horrible, bad, unhealthy, downhill situation into good so that we can bring what everyone else has looked for, stability, trust, compassion, love, whatever, and turn this organization into a good one to a great one, or to bad, unhealthy, money-losing one to a money-making one, whatever the case may be. And the thing is, whatever Jesus says this, he says, if it's not good yet, then God's not done yet. So you got to look at this. A leader needs to say the same thing. A leader needs to say, we're going to keep being stable. We're going to keep being faithful. We're going to keep hoping for a better tomorrow as we invest in the stability and the hope and the trust of today. And that's what people want. They want firm foundations, but they also want to dream a little bit. Hey, where are we going? What's the vision? What does our tomorrow look to be different? I want a brighter future. But honestly, here's the big part. And this is not just generational, because I know a lot of millennials are talking about they want to be a part of something that really goes somewhere, and they don't just want to sit on the sidelines. Honestly, I don't even think that's limited to millennials. Every single person that is a human wants to be involved in the change that they believe in for tomorrow. But rarely will they actually have a situation where they get involved, find their place, support their leader, and actually get to the place where they need to go, where they can see a better tomorrow. And that's really what people are hoping for is that hope. They're hoping for a better situation. And when they get in that situation, I want to just talk about this. When leaders give hope, the feelings with the followers, they'll be ready for work, eagerly expecting to go to work, even on a Monday. Come on, just imagine that. Just dream a little bit right now. If you got mundane Mondays, what would happen if you changed the culture and people were like, you know what, I'm excited about Monday. Maybe you just turn some fun into what you guys do. Put some competition into your businesses. Have some fun. We talk about that at church all the time. Man, we want to have a good time with where we work and who we work with. And so we want environments that actually stir up hope. Hey, what are we hoping for? What are we hoping to change? What are we hoping to see? What are we going after? But environments and teams that have absent hope, you get people that don't want to go the extra mile, that are milking the clock, that are just barely getting to 5 o'clock, and they're surviving only just to pick up their paycheck. And they're not hoping for a better tomorrow because they're really just punching a time clock and just calling out their purposes today.
Or even worse, their hope is to one day leave that organization for a better job.
Yeah.
I work along people like that. That's a hard place to be, where their hope isn't even in your job or what you're providing.
Sure.
It's in something else.
It's just a stepping stone.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, whenever I can get out of here, that's gonna be
Yeah.
one of the best. That's their current hope. But
Yep.
you talk about this thing called the imagine if statement, right? You said sometimes you need to ask as a leader, imagine if, and share that with your people. Imagine if we doubled our profits. Well, what could we do with those things? What kind of resource we could provide? What kind of things could we give to you all as our employees? Or,
Yeah.
Imagine if we changed the culture, it became positive. Mondays were an exciting day because we're finally back to work after a long weekend. Imagine if. Good statements. And Randy talked about that. Pastor Randy talked about that on a few Sundays ago about having those God-sized goals, right? Powerful stuff. To have those imagine if, like,
Yeah.
God, what's your next huge thing you want me to chase after that's only possible with you?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, here we are. Let's break open. You've been with us for 34 minutes now. We want to open it up. So, Thomas, grab your computer. Let's patch in to all of our phenomenal leaders. Big shout out to all of you guys that are logging on right now that already have been. I know you guys are interacting with one another, answering each other's questions. And I know, I just feel it. I don't have my feed here in front of me, but I know what you're doing. You're just saying, this is amazing. I'm getting so much out of this. Come on, is that true or what? I don't know if it is, but we can check out that later. So what I want you to do is ask some questions, figure out, hey, maybe there's some things that you need to improve on. As a leader, how can I get some practical examples of trust in my environment? Because the way we're talking, the descriptives that we're laying out there, maybe your business doesn't have that. So what I want you to do is when you ask your question, be specific. Maybe about your work environment. Where do you work? What are you hoping to do? What's your purpose of that job? So that then when you ask the question, how can you provide more hope? Give me some examples of that. Be specific with that so that we're not painting broad pictures here. So whenever you get to that, I want to ask some questions. And you know, that's the one part about one of the things that we do here is we're highly relational at Grace, and we want to make sure that this is a dialogue. It's a two-way street. And that's one of the reasons why we set up this platform. We want you to sit at the comfort of your own home or wherever there's free Wi-Fi, tap into this, and then pause and interact so that it's not just a one-way. It's not just a passive information, because that's not what we're hoping for. We don't want to fill your mind up. We want to fill your soul up. We want to fill your soul up with truths that are in the Bible but are also highly practical with where you are in your city. That's what we call your place of influence. So wherever your city is, I want you to consider the relationships around you and see how you can take this information and bring it out so that you can benefit those other people that are looking to you as their leader. So I don't know if we have any questions, but Thomas, you want to make some comments and maybe some conversations that are being brought up right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I know John Moak was just sharing about how his from his personal life, when he was working for a retailer back in 1998, that he ended up getting actually laid off. But a year later, the story gets good. He's a great group leader, by the way.
Yeah.
A year later, gets called back from his boss saying, "Hey, I want you to become a manager because of how much value you would show people.
Come on.
How much compassion, how much you would care for someone, go an extra mile."
That's awesome.
Now, we do have another question that came in from Phil. Phil said, "What do you do, or what does a leader do when they have broken trust?"
Yeah. So I'm going to take that in assumption. So maybe, Phil, you are patching in right now. You can elaborate a little bit. Are you talking about as a leader, you have broken the trust with somebody else? Let's say you're the leader and you've broken the trust in your company. You've broken the trust in your family. Whatever the case may be, I'm gonna roll with that assumption, and then you let me know for clarifications. One of the big ones that we talked about earlier, if you have broken the trust and you are leading the organization, one is you need to go to the person that you broke the trust with, or the company, and this is where it gets real humble, really, really fast. You need to apologize. Now, as leaders, it doesn't matter what you believe in, if you're a Christian or if you're not. If you're a leader, you need to be humble, because the pride is going to take you down from that particular elevated level quicker than you can imagine. So why don't you help yourself getting on your knees and apologizing to those that you broke trust with, being completely open and honest about why, what happened, details, etc. But here's what I wouldn't suggest. I wouldn't suggest airing out your dirty laundry to everyone who's not involved in the restoration process. If they're not involved in building that trust back up, then I wouldn't share it with them. But if they're directly involved in where the trust was broken, where it needs to be rebuilt, I would bring them into the conversation and get real personal, really quick, and I wouldn't leave anything out. I would put everything on the table and say, this is what happened, this is where I apologize, this is how I want to move forward, and so you guys have some clear, defined boundaries. And the last thing I would say is that give it time. Because if you're the leader and you're the one that broke the trust, whatever the reason is, whatever the conversation is going to look like in the future, you're going to need to let your followers restore that trust in you, and you can't force it along. You can't build that wall back up. They've got to build it. They've got to put the cement, they've got to put the bricks, and they've got to continue to giving over to you what it is that you tore down. That's a difficult thing. You tore down the wall, but they need to bring it back up so that you can have some stability.
Yeah, what's really cool about that is if you do that, you actually set the culture for when people make mistakes. So we're not perfect. You're not going to be the only leader in your organization that's going to make a mistake like that. So when you set the tone and say, I'm going to own up to this, take some practicals as well. Give it time. Maybe even set up an accountability. Hey, listen, I want to make improvements. So-and-so, will you just hold me accountable to this and check in on me periodically to make sure those changes are coming to pass?
Yeah.
And what you do is you actually try to set a culture, and we know that, I know we say it a lot behind the scenes too, but culture always trumps vision or mission.
Yep.
So that's powerful when you have that behind you.
That's good.
But I'd also like to flip the coin. Now say you're a follower, or you're a middle class leader, middle class manager, and you're watching the upper level leaders who've done the same thing. They've kind of broken the trust.
Yeah.
Maybe they said there's a raise in store for you. Said there's a promotion in store for you, and you ended up not getting it. They let your hopes up, and you kind of broke that trust. Like, are they looking out for me?
Yeah.
Well, I'd challenge you. Jerry Daly told me, he said, people typically live up to the expectations you place on them. So if you were to look to that leader and say, I have, like, kind of like God does, I see who you could be and not who you are now. And to begin to support that leader, challenge that leader, in a positive, loving way by saying, hey, what's next? How can I help you? What's the next big thing on the docket? I'd say that is also a positive for being the lower level person looking up to the higher level leader and helping spur them on to bigger things.
It's good. Definitely. Any other conversation pieces, questions, comments that we want to dig in on? I want to give you guys a chance to hone in. I know you guys have received a ton because we've been doing a ton of preparation every single month, but I want to give you guys a chance to do so. And if not, we're going to tease out what's going to happen next month, and we're going to let you guys go.
Got a great question here.
Yeah.
It says, what are some practical steps to changing a work culture, moving from mere goals to hope?
So say the last part, mere goals.
Yes.
So moving from just having goals.
Just goals to actual hope, and they'll come to pass.
Okay, great. This is going to be an easy one. Goals are fact-based, they're numbers, and hope derives a much deeper level of the cognitive. It actually needs to stir up your heart. So goals are the reason that you have a job today is you're meeting your goals. But if you want to stir up hope in a work environment, you need to tell stories. Tell stories that engage the heart. Tell stories that actually tell why you do what you do. And when you get to that point, you're going to move past just the facts and the knowledge. Because knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. You want to build your people up. So tell them stories. Be the chief storyteller in your organization so that you can stir up hope. Hey, you know what I just had is a conversation with a client who came in our work environment, did this, came here and here, and now their life has changed, shifted, or it's better because they bought our product, or they came to our business, or they actually received our service. Whatever it is, tell stories. And if you can't tell stories, then you need to get a little bit more connected with your people and find out why they're at your company, why they're at your work. But if you tell stories, now, when I say tell stories, I mean tell stories about personal applications about what really is happening. Positive, influential stories that actually will change the culture. Stories that are right now maybe secret. Only 2 or 3 people know, but everybody needs to know. Send it out to a staff newsletter. Share it at a staff meeting. I don't think you guys are aware of this, but 2 weeks ago, this situation happened. And when you tell stories, you're actually digging in the depths of people's hearts to say, that's why I want to be at this company. That's why we do what we do, because we see bigger things. People want to be involved in that, and they want to roll in it. But if you just go after the goals, they might just be dry. But if you go after the hope by telling stories, they're going to say, you know what, there's a bigger motive here, and I love it, and I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and there's a saying that goes along with that, Ryan. I think it's what you celebrate, people replicate.
Come on.
If you celebrate something, people are like, well, that gets attention.
Yeah.
That's valued. Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
That's
Stories
good.
powerful.
That's good.
So another great question, kind of a more difficult one is, what would you say to those who are leading, but they're feeling burned out and isolated?
So a couple of things that I would honestly ask is, one, you as a leader, if you're the one experiencing the burnout, are you doing something currently in your position that you're just not wired for? I think the business term is trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Is that what's causing your burnout? Are you doing something that's just you're just not made to do? It's not your wiring. It's not your gift mix. I mean, let me just give you a quick example. Are you an extreme extrovert and you get literally energy from seeing people, and you have a job that you are a CPA inside of a cubicle that sees nothing but numbers and pieces of paper, and you're dying and you're exhausted? Don't ask why. You just need to approach the situation and say, am I in the wrong position? Right person, just in the wrong place. Another one is, okay, let's just assume that you're the right person in the right place, but you're still exhausted. I look at workload, outside variables, but honestly, I would do a really, really good inventory on 2 things. One, what fills you up and what are you pouring out? What are you giving other people? Because when it comes to finances, there's one of two problems. You either have an income problem or a spending problem. When it comes to exhaustion, you've got one of two things. You've got a situation where you're not being poured into, or you're just not giving what you have. Now, if you're exhausted, one or the other is happening. So just do an inventory. What are you thinking about? What do you spend your spare time doing? Are you physically healthy? Is it a physical issue? Is it a soul issue? Is it a mental, cognitive issue? Are you just burning the candle at both ends? Are you doing too much? Ask yourself some really, really tough questions. If you can't come up with the answer, you need to get some really, really good friends. I mean, really good friends around you to ask, hey, let me just put these out here. Let me ask you these questions and tell me, speak into me, tell me the answers. Why do you think I'm exhausted? And then the difficult one is you got to change it. Because if you're a leader and you're exhausted, you're not doing anybody around you any good on the current situation that you're in. Maybe you need to take a break. Maybe this is a new year, so you just need to change up your schedule. Totally reprioritize. And one of the statements I was reading a leadership article that really, really hit me is this, and I'm just going to leave you with this. Small tweaks never change the world. So don't look at your job or you personally and think, I'm exhausted, and just try to make some small, tiny little tweaks, because that's not going to fix it. I mean, if you're exhausted, you got a major issue going on, and you can't roll past it because it's just going to get bigger, and everybody else around you is just going to hit their lid. They're going to look to you. No one's going to develop, and you're just going to create a culture that's going to be stale and unhealthy. So it's good that you noticed it, but man, I'd jump right in and start changing some things.
That's good, Ryan. Thank you for sharing on that. So that's about it for our questions.
Come on, that's awesome. I love it.
So to tease some of the good stuff coming up.
Yes. Our
next lead step, drum roll, wish you could hear it right now, is going to be in-house. I'm so excited. We love you guys so much, and it's going to be a blast to have everyone together as a family, to come together and to continue to develop and see what God has next. So our next lead step is February 26th at 6:30 p.m. at the Southern Pines campus. Light refreshments, of course, provided, but it's going to be childcare for 5 and under. If you go ahead, we'll send out a registration link after this, along with the recording of this lead step. But I'm just so excited, Ryan.
Yeah.
To get them in-house again.
Love it.
Love that you guys have the ease of doing it at your house. You can be on your computer, laptop with your family, feet up, kicked up, and get a chance to watch this.
That's right.
But to see everyone together, man, we love you guys. You all look so good.
So appreciate all that you guys do, wherever you guys are serving, in here at the church or in the city, out in your homes or across the world. We honestly just want to say, from our family, our hearts, the deepest recesses of our places, thank you so much. Whether you're tapping in online, you're part of our church or not, doesn't matter. We so welcome that you guys are here. We're going to do it again. We're going to come back on our LeadStep Online in March, but make sure if you are anywhere in the vicinity, 26th of February, you're going to be here. We're going to do an in-house. We're going to have some food, fantastic topics. Of course, all the people that you see all the time that do leadership, there's going to be some great time where we can actually come together, meet one another, be challenged so that we can become better. So without further ado, we love you guys, and we will see you guys next month.